Hi, I'm Cait. I'm a farmer in Iowa at Mullein Farm, and I'm at the CreekTop Community Garden today, and I'm going to talk about things you should do in the middle of the summer for your garden and summer harvesting. It's July, and I think a lot of people are like, just watching their crops grow and think there's not a lot to do in the garden, but there's actually a ton to do in the garden at this time. In the middle of the season, we really need to be checking for pests. We really need to be watering, and specifically you want to water early in the morning or in the evening, but before it gets dark. And we really need to keep everything watered well at this time so it will continue to produce, because we have so much heat right now. You really want to be checking and harvesting your plants too. And why harvesting, besides just getting to enjoy the crops and eat them, and that's the whole point of growing food. But why it's so important is because as you harvest, you're actually encouraging the plant to produce more. So you want to make sure that you're removing any of the really large, so this is like a yellow crookneck zucchini summer squash here. You really want to make sure that you are removing the larger squashes, because that's going to encourage the plant to then focus on the young ones and the tender ones, and also to produce more. You also want to remove anything that looks diseased, or you can tell just like isn't going to produce a fruit for you. So pretty simple, especially with squashes, having a really good set of just clippers, and you can come in right at where the stem is, and you want to leave a little bit of the stem when you're harvesting it. If you harvest too close to the actual squash, that can kind of rot the top of the squash. So you want to leave that stem on there. You want to let that stem kind of dry out. But just remembering to, with squash especially, and cucumbers, you have to kind of get in there to find all of them, like they're hiding. And especially with the cucumbers, you might look and you're like, oh, I don't see cucumbers on there, but then when you start digging around, look for the yellow flowers, look around that, you'll probably notice that you have dozens of cucumbers on your plant. Harvest them young if you're wanting to like pickle them or something like that. They're more tender, they're better for pickling. You can allow them to grow a little bit bigger if you want to as well. It's kind of your personal preference, but harvesting is really important. And after harvesting, when I harvest as a farmer, I'm also looking for disease and pests, and I use organic practices, so I want to make sure I identify what's going on, my disease or pest. That's the number one step, and then I'm going to start to figure out what I can do to help the plant. So usually manual or mechanical removal, so truly just removing the pest is the best first step to take in organic pest management. When I'm watering in the early morning, I'm also going to make sure that I'm not watering the leaves of the plant. So that's a really, really important technique. When we just spray over the top of the plant, that can actually cause the leaves to wilt. The leaves can get sun scald, too much heat because they're wet, and then the heat of the day. So we want to make sure that we come in here with our hose or whatever we're using to water, we're watering right at the root, at the soil level. So for cucumbers, again, you kind of need to get in here to find them. But as you can see in here, there's a lot of really great sized cucumbers. When you're harvesting them, you want to just gently twist them off of the vine. You don't want to pull the vine. If you yank the cucumbers, you can actually, they're pretty sensitive, so you can actually rip the vines or pull the whole plant out. So just a gentle twist on that little top. You do want to refrigerate cucumbers, so give them a rinse, put them in your refrigerator. And as you can see, all of these little flowers, these are going to turn into the cucumbers. So it's really good to, again, make sure that you're out there harvesting regularly. I would say cucumbers and green beans, if your crop is doing really well, you can pick every day, especially green beans. The more you pick, the more it will flower, the more it's going to produce fruits. If you see any cucumbers that are yellowing or diseased, or they're just goopy, things like that, again, make sure that you remove those off the plant. Green beans are awesome. They're one of my favorite things to grow, but they're also a lot of work. They take a lot of time to pick. You want to snap off the tops like this. There's tons of green beans on here. You can see the cute little purple flowers that they get. Again, same with all the other crops we're talking about. Really, green beans you can pick every day. And if you can get out and pick some every day, get those off the plant, and the plant will keep producing for you. One thing I think just in general with harvesting green beans is it's similar to like the cucumbers. If you come in here and you just try to pull really hard, you're gonna, the roots are just really not very sturdy. They're just kind of, they're very short. They're just barely in the ground. It's not like a prairie plant. So if you tug at the plant, you're just gonna tear your whole green bean plant off. So you really need to come in here and snap it. I just kind of use my finger and snap it off. can harvest at any size that you like. Sometimes I harvest the bigger ones, but they are going to be more woody and not as tender and fun to eat. So you can harvest really at any size that you like. The smaller ones, this is kind of like perfect size. What you want to do when you're harvesting your beets or turnips, or really any root vegetable, any vegetable that's growing under the ground, is you kind of want to poke through and look for the biggest ones. So some of them are going to be smaller and some of them will be larger, but sort of pick through, kind of find the ones that are more ready, let the ones that are smaller take their time to continue growing. Here's a really good sized one here. You want to give it a rinse, and you can store it in your refrigerator. Also, actually leaving a little bit of dirt on it will help it store longer. But these are some really good sized ones here. These are beautiful. And then you can see these are the smaller ones. So they were probably just growing up close next to these other ones and they didn't get thinned out, so they're still little right now. But by poking these ones out, then you're gonna give these ones a chance to keep growing. So harvest your beets, and this is also a crop right now that we can plant again. So something that I think gardeners might not know, or are when they're starting out might be less familiar, is that we actually have 2 windows where we can plant the cooler season crops. And our cooler season crops are our brassica family, so that would be broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower, kale, things like that, kohlrabi. And then we can also plant again the root vegetables, so that would be turnips, radishes, carrots, and beets, things like that. And it's really time, even in the middle of the season, it seems like it's so hot and my tomatoes are just coming on, but it's really time to start fall planting right now. So for the plants that need to be transplanted into the garden, so one example would be broccoli, you want to start those seeds now in trays, so we're the middle to end of July. And for the plants that we can sow the seeds straight in the ground, now is a great time for planting. Usually between the middle of July to the middle of August is a great time to get those fall crops in the ground. So these are carrots that are coming up. And one thing with planting during this time, doing our fall planting, is you can tell it's really dry. The soil is super, super dry. So we really want to make sure that we are watering deep and we're watering regularly, especially so that those seeds are going to germinate. Carrots like a lot of moisture. They also like really loose soil. Thankfully, at CreekTop Community Garden, the soil is amazing here, and that's why all the crops are so huge. But this is exactly what you want your soil to be like in your garden. You want it to be loose. You want to be able to stick your hand down in it. You don't want it to clump up like it's clayey. So this looks really good. But in general, when we're going to sow our fall seeds, we really in the morning want to make sure that we're giving them really good water until we see that germination happening. And that means until we see the sprouts coming up. General maintenance on our herbs that we're growing. So as you can see, they are flowering here. This is the plant going into its reproductive stage, or setting seeds. So what we can do to encourage the plant to continue to produce, this is basil here, is we're actually just gonna go in and we wanna clip off those flowers or those tops. And you can even do it, you can snap them off with your finger. But when you clip off these flowers, you're encouraging the plant to continue to produce the leaves, which are the part that you use. Same thing, this is mint. It's a great time when you see your herbs flowering. That means it's prime time to harvest them, especially if you're using them for plant medicine. But for mint, which is so great for your stomach and for digestion, you can just go ahead and clip it down. Kind of just take those tops off and then hang it to dry, lay it flat on screens to dry, whatever you prefer. But in this time, a lot of things are flowering. We really want those flowers. They're going to attract pollinators to the garden, which is going to help our food crops grow, but we also want to make sure that we're removing the flowers if we're wanting those plants to continue to produce. You can kind of see behind here too, we have some cilantro going to seed, and so this is coriander. So you could also go ahead and harvest that and use that as a herb to cook with. So summer maintenance on your herb plants.